infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. Yes, the thrill and the adrenaline is going. We're back on air. Jason Pine, our man from Sky Sports New Zealand. Kia ora, my friend. How are you?
It's great to see you and you, Josh.
We've got to turn him on.
There he is.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Am I on?
You are, my friend.
Audible?
You are. You're audible. You're way in front of the rest of the pack is all I can say. What a joy to have you on FNR again. So many things to talk about New Zealand-wise. So much to talk about Wellington Phoenix. I want to talk about your Ferns. I want to talk about this fantastic Melbourne City girl called young Stotty. Lo and behold, she's back after a little bit of a break from the game. She had a more important job to do, and that was look after herself. You know who we're talking about. Tell us, Jason.
Yeah, Rebecca Stott. I mean, what a story, guys. You know, a year ago, it was only a year ago, she was diagnosed with stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. I mean, that's blood cancer. Yeah. You know, that is not a mild condition. That is a serious condition. She was at Brighton and Hove Albion at the time, of course, and had to leave that club in order to start her chemotherapy, rehab, and it was aggressive chemotherapy that she undertook as well. She came back to Melbourne to do that, underwent a number of sessions of chemotherapy, which was, as I say, very aggressive. She lost her hair. Yeah. She suffered the side effects, but the chemotherapy worked so well, in fact, that she actually was in complete remission. One session of chemotherapy early, so she didn't have to do the last one. She was in full remission, and then it was a matter of getting herself back match fit. Turned out for a state league side, and then joined Melbourne City, of course, and then the call up to the football Ferns. I mean, obviously the timing last year was terrible in terms of the Olympic Games. Yep. She couldn't play for the Ferns at the Olympic Games, but she earned her recall for the recent She Believes Cup and took the field in the first game off the bench, and it was a very emotional time. You know, here's a player and a human being who's been through something that, you know, touch wood, most of us won't ever have to, but she's come through it. She stared down a pretty big monster, beaten it, and back out she went. So it was a story that reverberated around the world, and we're just delighted to see Rebecca Stott back out there.
Jason, I'm absolutely blown away by her this season, her performances for City. I was coming in thinking it's a bonus if she can even get on the pitch.
Yep.
You know, this is such a great story regardless, but she's bossed the midfield. She's switched positions to a position where you'd assume would involve even more running, but she's this deep-lying playmaker, Andrea Pirlo type, running the show in the centre of the park. It's unbelievable.
Smart, says Jason.
Astonishing. Yeah, and she's been around for a while now, right, guys? So she knows how to play the game.
She's a champion. Yeah.
Absolute champion. But you're right, Josh. I mean, you know, to come back and to not only take the field, but to be a standout in games, and she was for the football Ferns as well. She came off the bench, as I say, in all 3 of the games, and made a difference every single time in that deep lying role, that midfield role. We're used to seeing her at centre back. She's played a lot of football at centre back for club and country, But just her ability to, to receive a pass, to look up, to play a pass, just to be that fulcrum at the base of New Zealand's midfield may well be where we see her play over the next year to 18 months as we head towards the World Cup. But just to see her back out there, it was just, and that smile, that smile that had been absent for a while. Great to see it back. Great to see her back.
Jason Pine is our guest on State of Our Football Nation on FNR. Jason, you're a pro. You've watched her compete on many occasions. You've watched a number of great stories over the years because New Zealand has this fantastic ability to throw up champions left, right and centre. How has she been received by the football-loving public of New Zealand as she made her first moment back to the Ferns?
Oh, as you can probably imagine, George, with huge excitement and huge admiration for what she'd done. And I think, it's funny, a lot of people in football circles knew about Stoddy's illness and knew about her battle to beat it. But I think the wider New Zealand public weren't aware of the story necessarily, the full story, until she earned a recall to the Football Ferns. And then that story was told and people were like, oh my goodness, this player is amazing. This human being is amazing. She has, beaten an incredibly serious disease to not only beat it and get into remission, but to get back out and play, high-level sports. So, yeah, it was greeted with huge admiration, excitement, and great positivity, as you'd probably imagine.
Now, they say in sport, with every high, there's a low, and you've had a horror moment for one of your defenders. I don't want to drag it out too much, but give us a sense. Normally if you're a defender and you cop an own goal, that's part of football. It happens, yeah, and it can happen. But we've actually had a player. I won't say responsible for 3, but
the misfortune of the goal being attached to her name 3 times in one match.
Is that fair, or are we being way too tough?
No, you're being fair. No, she scored 3 own goals. There's no other way to look at it. She and I mean the one of the bigger ironies, and I'm sure this hasn't escaped your attention, is it was a perfect hat trick of own goals: a left footer, a right footer, and a header, which just adds to the legacy of this quite remarkable. I was going to say feat, but it's not really a feat. It's nothing. If you'd said to Michaela Moore, you're going to score a hat trick against the United States, that would have been beyond her wildest dreams. But this was the stuff of nightmares, absolute nightmares. And really, apart from the second one has come across. It's flicked off an attacker, hit Michaela Moore in the head and gone in. Nothing you can do. No player could do anything. They couldn't react in time. It's basically hit her in the head and gone in. The other ones, though, the first one, she sliced across into her own net, and the third one, the ball's come across the 6-yard box and she's just got her body in the wrong position, and instead of hacking it away, has hacked it into the back of the net. I could not believe what I was seeing. I was calling the game for Sky, and you're right, guys. Everyone who's played football scored an own goal.
Correct.
I don't care who you are. You find yourself on the wrong end of that. To score 2 is less common, but not completely unheard of. But I have never, ever seen a player score 3 own goals, not only in a game, but in a half. It was within 40 minutes. It was just quite extraordinary. And as we know, she was taken off shortly afterwards. There was a bit of debate about whether the right thing to do was to leave her on until half-time to save her further embarrassment by giving her the hook before half-time had even arrived. But by that stage, it was obvious her head had just gone. And, the most unfortunate of days for Michaela Moore, on the occasion as well, of her 50th cap. Wow. So, it could not have gone worse for her.
Does she get to keep the match ball afterwards?
Yeah, nice one, Josh. Yeah, I'd had that question as well. Yeah, signed by the opposition, perhaps. Yeah, look, I think what has been pleasing in the aftermath of it is, yes, of course, it's the kind of story that goes viral because a hat trick of own goals. No, I mean, it never happens, right? So it's had millions of views around the world, but the football family and certainly the New Zealand team have wrapped their arms around Michaela Moore. I understand she pretty much deleted all her social media just to separate herself from it. Yeah, I think so. She's gone back to Liverpool now, and I see a number of their players have have shown their support through, through various means. Look, it's, of course, she doesn't want it to happen, but look, if the upside of it, if the trade-off is that she scores a hat-trick or even a goal against the United States at the right end in the World Cup next year, then it'll all be worth it.
Bloody oath.
I guess she joins the Martin Palermo Hall of Fame. Do you remember the Argentina player who missed 3 penalties in a match? The worst hat-tricks. But I guess consolation for her, these things go viral very quickly and she's the centre of attention for about a day or two, and then give it a couple of weeks, everyone will have forgotten about it and you move on with your life. So it's just something that is just too... it's just too weird not to pay attention to. I feel a little bit bad about
Well, I was going to say black cats, but I don't want to talk about black cats. I don't want to talk about anything black because anytime you mention black, it's a winning team. It's the All Blacks. And as I think you and I have touched on, I actually am old enough to remember when Kenny Wright was the 5'8" for Australia's Wallabies at Eden Park, and they absolutely cruised past a very good New Zealand All Black side, but it was almost a century ago.
Yes, but it is good though, George, that you always bring it up. I think that's key. I think that's crucial that you always remind us.
Yeah. Well, Colin Mead kept reminding me that, and Kirkpatrick kept reminding me that they always had a hand on Kenny Catchpole whenever they needed it too. The great Kenny Catchpole.
You've lost me, George.
No, we're going back into the archives now. There was a fabulous halfback for Australia in the days when the Wallabies were a seriously talented football team. His name was Kenny Catchpole. Played for the Galloping Greens, Randwick, and of course played against the almighty All Blacks. And Mead and Kirkpatrick, two of the roughest, toughest footballers, forwards of their day. In fact, they are. I think there are a couple of monuments that hold up one of the bridges in New Zealand, aren't they? They're
like
that big.
Yeah. They're well regarded.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
They've got tree trunk thighs. It's scary stuff. And they grabbed him at the side of a ruck, and one turned to the other and said, "Meet you on the other side," and almost finish his football career then and there. It was scary stuff. But it was a different game. It was a different era, but they still had this passion to not be beaten by anybody. And that New Zealand streak, it's in there. It's deep it's like in the water, Jason, because Wellington, the Phoenix, come back home and play, and they lift a leg. You see them. Whether it's the people taking off all their tops and running around doing crazy things. Oh, by the way, we actually had a streaker at Amy Park the other night.
I don't think it was a Wellington Phoenix tribute.
But he streaked with his clothes on and then proceeded to try and jump the fence and then crashed into it. That was not special.
So he's not really a streaker at all, is he? He's just a ground invader. Yeah.
Jason,
you can't even get that right.
Let's get back to the football. This Football Ferns side, I mean, the sideshow of the own goals aside, just how well are they preparing for this home World Cup? Because we keep talking about our home World Cup. I think everyone's forgotten it's yours as well.
Yeah, look, not to put too fine a point on it, they'll be disappointed with what happened at the She Believes Cup. You know, they were well beaten by the United States, but I mean, there's no crime in that. They're a very good team, as we all know. They haven't lost at home for goodness only knows how long. But in the other two games against Iceland and the Czech Republic, I just thought New Zealand were a bit toothless in attack. I think they created very little. They didn't score a goal in the 3 games, so that tells you something. But really, guys, they didn't look like constantly threatening the opposition goal either. And when you've got players like Hannah Wilkinson, who we know has been playing so well for Melbourne City, got 5 in a game not that long ago, was basically really ineffective. Any chances that New Zealand had kind of came from pacey players trying to get down the flanks and get balls into the area. Which kind of all fizzled out, really. So I think in attack, Jitka Klimkova, the coach, has got a bit of work to do. She has to decide whether the players she has at the moment are the ones to take the team through to next year, or whether she has to start blooding some others. Defensively, they're okay. As you say, notwithstanding the hat-trick of own goals and shipping 5 against the US, they were actually okay defensively, reasonably solid. So they won't typically get run over by sides. But to progress in a tournament, as you guys know, you need to score goals. Yeah, and at the moment, they don't look like scoring regularly when they go out. You know, they just don't seem to have a cutting edge that is necessary in a tournament as big as the one that's coming up.
Is there a youngster in the background that could just appear, just jump out of the woods?
Well, I'll tell you who I really like, and you may have seen her playing for the Wellington Phoenix women's side, is a young girl called Alyssa Wynnum. Now, she's basically come from nowhere, really. She wasn't, I think you might have heard this story, wasn't even in the Wellington Phoenix women's squad when it was initially named. Coach Gemma Lewis rang Alyssa Wynnum and said, "Hey, Alyssa, I know you've been in the mix, but unfortunately we haven't got a place for you." But then there came up the opportunity to have a couple of scholarship players join the team, and Alyssa Wynnum was one of those. And it's turned out she's played pretty much every game. In fact, she started the last 10 or 11 games and has been terrific. She's not an out-and-out striker. She's not number 9, but she's a very, very clever attacking midfielder. And if you're looking for ways to unlock opposition defences, she's got great feet, guys. You know, she's got wonderful little skill and the ability to get away from people. Doesn't look that quick, but gets away from people and can set things up. So if I'm Jitka Klimkova, I'm kind of taking a punt on Alyssa Wynnum. I'm saying, look, we haven't got a player like you. We haven't got really an attacking number 10 like you. Let's get you into the camp. Let's work with you for a year, and who knows what you might produce when the World Cup rolls around. Because other than that, guys, you look around at the players playing professionally around the world, and there isn't anybody coming through like that. There just isn't, unless they've escaped everybody's attention, because the players who are playing professionally have pretty much been mopped up by this side. They're playing in the side, but they just don't, at the moment, have the ability to unlock opposition defences.
You were looking for someone who could surprise, George. I think Alyssa Wynnum surprised herself a few weeks ago when she scored that goal against Brisbane Roar. She was stunned, sort of agape, hands to her mouth. It was such a great moment.
Delightful, yeah. I mean, look, if you and I scored, Josh, we'd be very, very surprised. But Alyssa Wynnum she's a professional footballer. You'd think that that she wouldn't be that taken aback by the fact she'd score. But it was a lovely moment, right? Yeah. And as I say, she's just a kid. They all are in that team. But yeah, the kind of unbridled emotion was really, really quite endearing, I thought.
The public, they starting to get excited about a Women's World Cup down under?
I think they are, George. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, in fact, tomorrow the Women's Cricket World Cup starts in New Zealand, the 50-over World Cup. So that's the first of 3 big women's tournaments. We've got the Women's Rugby World Cup later in the year, and then of course the big one, the Football World Cup, co-hosting with Australia in the middle of next year. So it's a really quite a cool time for women's sport over here, and I know the tournaments are going to try and bounce off one another to take lessons and look, we all know how big a FIFA World Cup is. We know what the FIFA machine is like when it cranks into gear, and look, I wouldn't say that in March of 2022 we're absolutely frothing for June of next year to roll around, but there is excitement there, and it will only build as the tournament gets closer.
How about some of your men's players playing over in Europe? We've been getting ahead of ourselves and excited because Christian Volpato scored a goal in Serie A, but meanwhile, Libby Kakachi's making inroads at Empoli and looked to have a pretty good game for himself against Juventus over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, this is another cool story, isn't it? He's always been a player, in the A-League who you thought, he's got a bit about him, this kid. And in his final season at the Phoenix, he was, I think by all accounts, from all observers, the best left back going around. Spent time in Belgium where he became a European professional and learnt what that meant, but he's always targeted Serie A. And for Empoli to come in for him in the transfer window, the way the deal is structured, if Empoli stay in Serie A, his loan deal becomes a 3-year deal. So all they've got to do is stay up. And they're mid-table at the moment. They shouldn't have too many problems with that. So he'll become an Empoli player at the end of this season. And, for a kid, I'm sure I've told you this story. His dad owns a very popular restaurant in Wellington, and it's an Italian restaurant. That won't surprise you. And a lot of the Phoenix boys used to go in there many years ago. The likes of Andrew Durante, Vince Leah, Glenn Moss would go in there. And Libby's dad, Antonio Kakachi, would say to these guys, "Hey, I've got my son's a good young player." Libby was about 9 or 10 at this stage, and so Dura and Vinny and Mossy would, nod politely, and then they go outside and go, man, I wish that guy would stop bloody talking about his son. and then fast forward a few years, and who should turn up in the Wellington Phoenix changing room but Libby Kakachi in his school uniform, because he was still at school when he signed pro, and sitting next to Dura. And Dura would say, oh, maybe your old man was right after all. And it has proven to be the case. So it's a great story. And he's a great kid. He's a really great kid from a wonderful family. And, I just wish only good things for Libby Kakachi.
Sarpreet Singh, meanwhile, Bundesliga 2 on loan from Bayern Munich. And he's been turning some heads, among people who watch the Zwei Bundesliga at least.
Yeah, Regensburg is where he is, and I think he had a really difficult loan spell at Nuremberg. The first time he went out on loan from Bayern Munich, didn't work out from it all. Went back to his parent club, and now at Regensburg he's getting games and is doing well. He's got a bit of a niggle at the moment, which I understand is going to keep him out of the Oceania World Cup qualifiers for New Zealand at the back end of March. Won't be it's a loss, obviously, but New Zealand should still be able to negotiate that okay without him, as long as he's around for what hopefully will be an intercontinental.
That's what I was going to clarify. He's okay for the intercontinental playoff, right?
Yeah, well, that's in June, so let's hope so, Josh. I think playing 5 games in 11 days or whatever it is, or even 3 games in 8 days, which is what the window is, would have been probably just pushing it a bit. So if the trade-off is you get him for June, you take him for June, because in all honesty, New Zealand shouldn't need Sarpreet Singh to account for the likes of New Caledonia, Fiji and Tahiti. And I don't think that's being arrogant. I just think it's the state of where we are in Oceania. Every player in the New Zealand side is a professional, and there are no players playing professionally in the other island side. So back to Sarpreet, he's doing well. He looked good in the All Whites games he played at the back end of last year and the start of this, and he's the only, I talked before about how the Ferns don't have a number 10. Sarpreet is the only pure number 10 that New Zealand has. He's the only guy to get in that pocket between midfield and defence, facing in the right direction and playing those balls into the likes of Chris Wood and others. So, yeah, it's really important for New Zealand that he is available for the big games.
You mentioned Woody. He's had a fantastic step up to Newcastle. And how the coach of Newcastle appears to like having a target man of that calibre, and he's a big unit.
Yeah, massive guy.
How big is he? Is he 6'4", 6'5"?
I don't think he's quite 6'5". He'd be sort of 6'3", 6'4", but he's solid as well. Yeah. With it, he's not your Peter Crouch type. He's solid, and he's a genuine number 9 and makes things difficult for any defender. And I think this is a great move for him. He's toiled away at Burnley, double-figure goals in the last 4 seasons. Not too many players do that and in 4 consecutive seasons score double-figure goals in the Premier League. So a good move for him. A lot of people are saying, well, what's going to happen when Newcastle's money really kicks in and they bring a whole lot of players in, or what happens if they get relegated, which is still a possibility, although they're starting to play a lot better now. I just think Chris Wood's coming into a club that's on an upward swing. And, for him, he's battled away with Burnley. He's clearly got a pay rise to go to Newcastle. Oh, yeah. And if he, in some way, shape or form helps them to stay in the Premier League and to actually finish the season in relatively promising style, then he'll be very popular with those fans. They might have European football to look forward to. He's not getting any younger, Chris Wood. He's not old by any stretch, but he's not, he's not going to be around forever. So I think it's a good move for him, and we all obviously in New Zealand hope that he does 2 things: does well for Newcastle and stays fit for New Zealand.
Yeah.
Well, if he plays well for Newcastle now, then he'll solidify his status as a kind of mid-table Premier League striker, and whatever Newcastle spend on their replacement, correct, I don't think he'll struggle to find another employer in the division if he plays well at Newcastle now.
Yeah, good point. Really good point. Yeah.
Let's talk A-League. Let's talk about the Phoenix. What have you made their season thus far, with all the complications and with all the disruption that the season has taken? Because I spoke to Tony Sage from Perth Glory last night. They played Melbourne City and finished 2-2. But he was busy telling me all night just how many problems they've had to endure, how many closed doors they had with the state of WA. And King McGowan, of course, rules a principality just as he wants. Thank you very much. And it's been very, very difficult. How has Phoenix, in your eyes, been coping?
Yeah, first of all, I got to say I really feel for Perth Glory. You know, I mean, they have had a heck of a ride, you know, and we all hope that it'll finish soon. They'll get back home, and we know how much they love their football over there. The Perth Glory supporters, hopefully they can get to play some games over there, and Daniel Sturridge gets fit and he can play a bit as well. I think with the Phoenix, they've almost now got used to the fact that they have to play in Australia. You know, this is their third season during which they've had to play a significant portion, if not all of it, on your side of the ditch. And they've kind of just got used to it now. But having said that, they were pretty terrible for a large period of the first part of the season. The Phoenix always seemed to start badly. They gave us a bit of hope at the start of this season. They had a win and a draw, and all of a sudden after 2 games, they're up near the top of the league. But then they kind of fell down and lost a few games, and they lost 4-0 to Adelaide United on New Year's Day, and they were, if not rock bottom, they were certainly 11th and going in the wrong direction. But since then, they've won 4 and drawn 2 of their last 6 games, unbeaten, at a nice little FFA Cup run, including those penalty shootout heroics from reserve goalkeeper Alex Paulson. And all of a sudden now they're just sort of sitting in and around the top 6 with quite a few games in hand and a pretty good first 11. So, look, I'm not saying they're going to go on and win the A-League, but I think they've got every chance, as most teams actually have at the moment, of being in the top 6 so they can continue this form. They've been really, really good on a couple of their games. They've been well worth the victories that they have picked up. They've brought in a couple of good imports in Gail Sarnival and Scott Wooten. And look, I think they've been a lot better. They were, as I say, guys, they were pretty average for large parts of the first 5 or 6 games, but they've been pretty good for most of the last 6.
He's a tough judge normally, but he's very honest. Jason Pine from Sky Sports New Zealand has been our very special guest on FNR State of Our Football Nation. Jason, thank you very, very much. Continue doing what you're doing, and that is just providing excellent coverage for all the sports. I noticed you weren't doing the cricket in the last couple of days. What happened there just before you go? What happened? You had South Africa right where you wanted them.
Yeah, unfortunately, they slipped away from us. Yeah, I mean, a tale of 2 test matches. We thought we've never beaten South Africa in a test series. Still haven't.
I was going to say still haven't.
Still haven't. So maybe we've got to wait for the next time. But right. Yeah, it just didn't go our way, George. But as I say, if that means that we do well at the Women's World Cup, then I'm happy to do the trade-off.
He's buying it. Thank you, Jason. Awesome stuff. Thank you.
Great to chat, guys. See you later.
We'll take a break. Back with more in just a moment.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
With this great sporting nation who has yet to embrace fully the world's greatest game, and for so long of trying to have the game accepted. And when I'm up to the big football field in the sky, I just want people just to remember I told you so.
And suddenly the complexion of the game changes. Let's hope it doesn't, but this is the best period for Iran in the match. Ali Dodi, danger for Australia here, the flag's down! It's an equaliser!
You just feel for them, not just the boys, they are representative of so many people who make this game their life. It's just, no, I can't say anything, mate.
All right. Especially as they have the impetus. Aloisi, Cahill! Tim Cahill has done it again! What a goal by Tim Cahill! 2-1 Australia! Oh, it's a wonderful moment in Kaiserslautern! And Tim Cahill has come off the bench and maybe won the match for the Socceroos.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Since Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Ronaldinho gathers speed past Ramos. Alguero comes to meet him. He goes past Alguero. Ronaldinho at his very best. Unstoppable.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Maloney takes, and it's in! It's Ben Watson! It's Ben Watson for Wigan Athletic! They've surely won the FA Cup! For Dave Whelan, for Roberto Martinez! You just cannot write scripts like this!
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.
We're back. State of Our Football Nation here on FNR Football Nation Radio. Josh Parish and George Donikian with you, and we're going to take a little trip to New South Wales after our Kiwi adventure before the break. Tony Tannous is a commentator for Football New South Wales, and the league kicking off tomorrow night as Mount Druitt Town Rangers take on Apia Leichhardt. Tony, welcome to the program.
Yeah, great to be here, George and Josh. Great to see you both. Really looking forward to the season, obviously kicking off tomorrow. We're sort of a couple of weeks behind you guys in Melbourne, but yeah, very geared up and looking forward to a bumper 2022, hopefully a season that we can actually complete after two rather interrupted campaigns back to back.
Yeah. The big theme for me this season has been the looming National Second Division, a prospect for many of the clubs in Victoria. Same goes for New South Wales, and I think in Victoria we've seen a real arms race when it comes to recruitment and clubs stepping up their game, wanting to make the best impression, put their best foot forward. Have we seen that trend in New South Wales as well?
Yeah, undoubtedly. I think obviously we saw the great news last week, the report, and obviously the 30 clubs, 6 of which are from New South Wales. So, 6 of the big guns, and obviously they're all sort of stepping up their game. You can see the investment that they've made in their squad, not just on the park as well. You can start to see the movement behind the scenes. They're sort of beefing up their football departments. And I think it's fantastic to see. I think this is what we've sort of been, clamouring for, that gap between A-League and NPL, and the opportunity that the National Second Division will provide to sort of bridge that gap. And we certainly are starting to see that. It's a very exciting time. Obviously, as I said, 6 clubs from New South Wales, Marconi, Sydney Olympic, a couple of the great NSL clubs, and Sydney United, 58's another of those. We've also got the Wollongong Wolves, national champions a couple of times, and then Apia and Rockdale are the 6. So, they're all definitely keen to. I guess this season's really important after 2 interrupted seasons because of COVID, and maybe clubs across the NPL probably slipped back a little bit. I thought the standard a couple of years ago prior to the COVID lockdowns was really lifting right across the NPLs. I thought New South Wales levels, that gap between A-League and NPL was really being bridged by the quality that the clubs were sort of putting in. I think COVID sort of set them back a little bit, obviously the semi-professional clubs.
Agree.
So this season is very much an opportunity to reboot and sort of reignite those ambitions to become semi-professional, potentially leading towards professionalism, which we all know we need more than, so we need to build the volume of professional clubs across the country to give our game the future, sort of the best shot in the future. So really important time for the game, and it's great to see the clubs sort of stepping up to the plate.
Tony, a couple of years ago, as you touched on, we had a club show here. It was the Apia Club Show, and we got a chance regularly throughout that season to follow Apia's pursuit for another title. And as it was recorded, they did. They made it in front of a terrific set of fans at Bank West. In fact, I think they broke the ice. They launched Bank West Stadium, this beautiful new facility that has been redeveloped in that area that Parramatta desperately needed. Are we going to see Apia really, flex its muscle and also its experience?
Yeah, well, certainly they're one of the clubs that feel that they need to sort of step it up after probably a couple of seasons after coming off that 2019 championship, sort of very euphoric, amazing occasion at Parramatta Stadium. And then probably, the results haven't quite been what they wanted in the last couple of years. Maybe the fact that, sort of it's been that COVID interruption as well. They haven't quite invested. Well, they've got Daniel Cummins, who they had a lot of success with in the past. A fantastic coach. He's one of only 2 changes in the coaching situation. There's a lot of stability across the NPL New South Wales, but Apia have brought Daniel Cummins back in, and their issues last year were not so much from a defensive point of view. Their issues were in attack. They, sort of had the 4th best defence across the league, but they finished 8th. Obviously the season was cut short in July, but Apia's issues were very much in front of goals. 20 goals across these 17 games. So, very poor in that area. So Jason Romero, who you guys would have seen in the FFA Cup, sort of do some fantastic things against the West Sydney Wanderers, really toyed with the Wanderers over at Leichhardt Oval. Another one to keep an eye on is Matt Cale, who's had a bit of injury in the pre-season. I think he injured himself in one of the FFA Cup games over in Canberra, but he's a former Central Coast Mariners striker. So they're a couple certainly, to keep an eye out on. I think they've got some good youngsters that have come in as well, Fabian Monge and Walter Scott, who have both had A-League Academy experience. So keep an eye on those youngsters along with Yanni Nicolau. So, Apia, they've got their experienced core and they're trying to build this new blend of players into the squad. Certainly one of those in the mix, but they have to prove that they can gel. So that's the challenge for Apia, I think, this season.
Sydney Olympic have signed one of the most high-profile players in the whole competition, Roy O'Donovan. Of course, lit up the A-League for many seasons, also served many suspensions. What's he going to bring to Sydney Olympic this season?
Yeah, I think they're probably like Apia, very much the same story for them. So defensively, they were fantastic, I thought. Sort of the 3rd best defence in the competition last year. Their issue was in front of goals. They had a bunch of youngsters, the likes of, sort of Marley Peterson, Ollie Pufflet. You saw Adam Parkhouse against Sydney FC in the FFA Cup. He was outstanding. But O'Donovan gives them that experience in the centre, in that number 9 role. So behind him, Brendan Chalakian, who's a fantastic, experienced sort of number 10. So you start to see O'Donovan with Chalakian, Adam Parkhouse, and then you've got those younger players, the likes of Peterson and Pufflet, sort of there to support as well. And you're starting to blend that experience with youth. So I think that's really what Ante Juric has looked for. That experience that he can sort of build a squad. It has been a very young squad. He's had 2 years of really good rebuild, I think, bringing in some youngsters. And the defence has not been an issue. It's can they gel and click in that final third? Like for so many clubs, I think last year really highlighted that. The competition is so competitive. The levels are fantastically spread right across the 12 teams. There's very little in any game between all the sides, and I think that's why it is such a top competition. The level spreads right through those 12 sides, but the difference is that quality in the front third. And I think that's what some of those clubs who maybe struggled there last year are trying to bring this year. So
that's the edge.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about Manly as well, coached by Adam Griffiths, a famous name from A-League seasons past and one of the very famous Griffiths brothers. He's got an experienced general in the middle of the park in Matt Sim, a player I've just adored watching over the years in the NPL and in the A-League as well. But there's a pretty young team surrounding Sim. Can they do anything special this season? Because we know they did win the title one year.
Yeah, I think they're fantastic. So, in fact, it was that season where Daniel Cummins was the coach at Apia 2017 that Manly, sort of got the edge on them in the grand final at Leichhardt Oval. So they have been going through a bit of a rebuilding phase. I thought they were fantastic last season, Manly, and I've got them as really, sort of one of the contenders that if the top teams, those, traditional powerhouses slip up, Manly are certainly a side that can push, sort of into that. Last year they finished the season when it got cut short. They were in fourth place, and I feel that they've probably tried to add a little bit of creativity, and that's the difference. They've sort of evolved their team, and I'm really excited not only to see Matt Sim. I'm a massive fan of Matt Sim, a fantastic player at Sydney United over the last 5 years, but two players in particular are fresh faces to the NPL New South Wales. One of them in Christian Santich, spent some time in Melbourne, so you would have seen him, a little bit of him, but he sort of comes from Perth. He spent a lot of time at Perth FC, and I saw them on a couple of occasions in the NPL finals, and he really caught my eye. A fantastic young player. So Christian Santich is one to really excite and watch out for. And the other one is a bit of a personal favour of mine, because I've been calling the New South Wales Futsal Premier League for the last few years here in New South Wales. Bruno Mendes, he's a player with the futsal pedigree, a Brazilian, who sort of, he just lit up the New South Wales Premier League futsal scene a couple of seasons back prior to the COVID disruption, won the Golden Boot. It was the talk of the futsal scene. And then he started to take that sort of confidence and form into his outdoor game. He was sensational at Harcoa. He spent a couple of years in NPL too.
How old is he, Tony?
So he's not young. He's 27, but he's bursting into the top flight, so the NPL New South Wales. So he's certainly one to keep an eye out on. Bruno Mendes, I'm very excited to see how he sort of goes throughout the season. Manly is certainly, when you think about those two, you've got Thomas Fay also from Sydney FC, an adaptable player. They've got a lot of good quality young players. So it is an exciting time. And that's what I'm saying about the spread and the quality of the NPL New South Wales. Every club you look at has an appealing story.
I think Christian Santich is a good pick. I thought when he was in Victoria had massive ability and a huge ceiling to get to as a player. He's this little attacking midfielder. He's got great touch. But the team he was playing in Victoria was just going through a really rough patch. Dandy City, they were fighting relegation. They were coaching changes and things. They were playing a pretty aggressive and direct style of football. It didn't suit him. But if he's in a team that can play the ball to his feet, I think he can really kick on, because he's 19, 20? He's still very young.
Yeah, I think he's probably hit the early 20s, but still, I think he's just got and Manly are certainly a team under Adam Griffiths that want to play. They're doing up their pitch, I believe. So their pitch has probably been, it's one of the synthetic pitches that we've got right across New South Wales. It's been a bit bumpy probably, due for a bit of an upgrade, and so they're doing that. I think that's really going to help. And I actually think, not to discredit anything about the Victorian League, and we saw that last week. Sometimes the pitches can be a little bit bumpy, more difficult to play on. In New South Wales, we tend to get, sort of a little bit more opportunity to keep the ball on the deck at times and play that football, and I think that'll suit Christian. I certainly hope so. It'll be an exciting addition to our league here.
Has the weather taken a toll on the pitches for the weekend?
Yeah, and this is an interesting sort of ongoing developing story at the moment. I think Marconi was scheduled to take on Sutherland. I got some word midweek that might be switched around, so Sutherland could be hosting there because they do have a synthetic pitch. And the other two games that are being played on turf pitches tomorrow. Their season opener at Mount Druitt Town Rangers They're hosting Apia. I'm not sure there's an opportunity to do swaps there. And Belmore Sports Ground on Saturday, Sydney Olympic are hosting Manly. So I guess that'll be a watching brief. Just keep an eye on the NPL New South Wales socials for any sort of updates on those games. But the other games are sort of on synthetic. The game that I'm at's on Sunday, which is Sydney United 58 hosting Wollongong in a massive, the rivalry that's developed between these two in the last few years, some massive games.
Have you got a prediction?
Shake the status quo.
Have you got a prediction? Have you got a prediction?
Oh, I think Sydney United, and the reason I say that is Wollongong probably struggled last year. They finished 7th, and their issues as well. They just couldn't function in the final third. In fact, they had issues right through even the midfield. So they've made some massive changes. Luke Wilkshire's brought back Guy Knight and Nick Littler, who were part of that success. And I think, that will add a lot of stability, that experience for Wollongong. And they've brought in some attackers to sort of join Leroy Jennings and Lockie Scott. So, they've tried to boost up their attack a little bit. Sydney United, their stability is very impressive. So only 2 major changes. You mentioned Matt Sim earlier. So probably, we think about Matt Sim and Jackson Curry, the only 2 real, key players that have sort of moved on, and they've been able to replace them with Cole Chimenti and a Japanese player who is being highly rated, and he's certainly one to watch in the NPL New South Wales this season, Kaneko Taisei. He's certainly one to watch. There's been a lot of good talk about him in the pre-season at Sydney United, so I'm looking forward to catching him on Sunday. And I think that stability that Sydney United have, they're at home as well. So
very tough. Very tough at home.
They're going to be tough. And to me, they're one of the 3 probably favourites for the title, sort of when you look at the strength. And I think Blacktown City, who were thereabouts, they were top of the table when it finished. Mark Crittenden is an amazing coach. There's a lot of talk that he could have stepped in, sort of West Sydney Wanderers had so many issues. Mark Crittenden, keeps getting sort of mentioned as a guy who's just had so much success in the New South Wales competition and probably could do a great job at a higher level. He's just got a well-oiled machine of a lot of quality youngsters that are coming through. They were so impressive last year. And so I think they're in the mix as well. And Marconi have recruited amazingly. So we talk about front third quality. Sydney United have, Chris Payne, Patrick Antelmi and Cole Chimenti. Well, Marconi have Charles Lochillian-Goy, who was on their books before Wellington. I know you had Piney on earlier. Before Wellington took him just before the season a couple of years ago. And it really disrupted their campaign. Well, second time lucky here. Charles Lochillian-Goy is going to start the season, and he is certainly one of the exciting signings. So his partnership with Thomas James, former Wollongong Wolves. Thomas is out injured. He sort of injured himself in pre-season, but when he's back in a few weeks, that is going to be, an exciting sort of, and young Angelo Costanzo's young boy, Dominic Costanzo from South Australia has joined Marconi too in the attacking third. So he's another one to watch. I think Marconi, they've been strong defensively. It's that attack again, 10 draws last year. So I think, those attackers might be able to shift those games in their favour. That's certainly what Peter Tsakenis is hoping for.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, the father-son tale of Dom Costanzo pulling on the same jersey that his father did in the NSL days.
Yeah, amazing. And I that was a great generation of sweepers and central defenders, sort of a lot of them still around. So I mentioned Ante Juric earlier. He was in that sort of same generation, with Angelo battling for spots in the Socceroo lineup. But Angelo was a fantastic sort of, very strong defender. And I was having a bit of a laugh. I watched Marconi pre-season game on the weekend, having a bit of a joke with Dominic, sort of saying, you're a striker, how does that work? Your dad's a defender. Peter Tsakenis, he was a tough central midfielder. His son Damien's a striker at the Mariners. I don't know, these young boys, they're learning quick, sort of maybe they don't want, they want the limelight in the front third.
The spotlight, that's it. Tony, we get a chance to catch up with you on Tuesday. Is there a chance to get a review after this big weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to catching up on the week's action. Hopefully we get as many of the games across the line. Obviously with the rain, let's see how the situation goes. But yeah, certainly
good stuff.
Keen to talk it NPL New South Wales.
Well, Tony, we really appreciate your time, mate, and we'll catch up with you again at some point next week, assuming that as many of the games go ahead as possible. You've got loads of artificial pitches in New South Wales, so you should be okay.
Now he says, now.
Yeah, and I actually think it's, I know that there's some players don't like it because of the difficulty underfoot, etc., but it means that games get completed. And the standards of, like Sydney United built a new one recently, and that standards, international class, and all the players really like that. I think Manly, as I said, are going to be the next to upgrade. Cronulla's probably due. The Sutherland Sharks, they're probably due for an upgrade as well at some point.
Gee.
So, I think it does allow us to get the games across the line, which is fantastic.
Tony, we'll catch up with you again soon. Thank you for your preview, and we're looking forward to the NPL New South Wales season.
Yeah, thanks, George and Josh. Catch up soon.
All the best, Tony. Well done. Another guest coming up to join us, Bonita Mersiades, will be with us to talk about so many things in the world of football, some that don't make sense and some that do. Big opportunity to find out what's happening in just a moment.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Penalty conceding kind of situation, but Atkinson did well. Oh my goodness! Have you seen a more freakish goal in A-League history? Riley McGreen with a scorpion kick into the top corner. It's one of the most amazing things we've ever seen. Come on, Ernie, on your feet.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
We're this great sporting nation who has yet to embrace fully the world's greatest game, and for so long of trying to have the game accepted. When I'm up to the big football field in the sky, I just want people just to remember I told you so.
And suddenly the complexion of the game changes. Let's hope it doesn't, but this is the best period for Iran in the match. Ali Joy, danger for Australia here, the flag's down! It's an equaliser!
Just feel for them. It's not just the boys, they are representative of so many people who make this game their life. It's just, I can't say anything, mate.
Especially as they have
the impetus. Aloisi. Cahill. Cahill! Tim Cahill has done it again! What a goal by Tim Cahill! 2-1 Australia! Oh, it's a wonderful moment in Kaiserslautern! And Tim Cahill has come off the bench and maybe won the match for the Socceroos.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Takes, and it's in! It's Ben Watson! It's Ben Watson for Wigan Athletic! They've surely won the FA Cup! For Dave Whelan, for Roberto Martinez! You just cannot write scripts like this!
Voor Frank de Boer. Frank de Boer speelt de bal. Heel goed naar Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp neemt de bal aan. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Oh! Frank de Boer speelt de bal aan Dennis Bergkamp. Die neemt de bal feilloos aan. En die schiet de bal erin. We spelen nog officieel 20 seconden. Dennis Bergkamp. 2-1.
FNR, Football Nation Radio. You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. Yes, back on air, George Donikian along with Josh Parish. We started the program with Jason Pine. We went via Zoom across the ditch, found out a whole bunch of different things and got a chance to talk about Rebecca Stott, who's just been magnificent, who's had a personal fight for her health, and she's back in football, and more importantly, she's been embraced by the New Zealand public, and what a champion she's proving to be. And more importantly, when the Women's World Cup rocks up in Australia and New Zealand next year, in June of next year, I firmly believe, as does Josh, that Rebecca Stott will be in the Ferns lineup. What do you reckon?
I can't imagine she won't be, George. The way she's playing at the moment, I think the team needs her. Melbourne City need her, and the Football Ferns need her as well. She's playing so well, scheming in the heart of the midfield in both a defensive and an attacking sense. She's proved invaluable this season. Put aside all of the heartwarming stories and so forth, that aspect of it, she deserves her place, just on performance alone.
The other thing I was going to say is she's a tremendous character. She's won a number of titles at Melbourne City. So she understands success. She understands what it takes to win. Someone who's going to join us on air, someone who's been right in the middle of the game for an awful long time. She's worn a number of different hats. I don't know which one she's wearing tonight, but she joins us via canoe from Sydney and Zoom. Are you still afloat, Bonita Mersiades?
Yeah, hi George, hi Josh. We're definitely afloat, but it's still raining.
Oh my goodness! And you've got brother and sister in Brisbane who have had a really tough time as well.
Yeah, brother-in-law and sister-in-law. That's right. Yeah,
wow.
There's a lot of family in Queensland, but they were evacuated from their house in Brisbane.
Are we going to see a competition in the New South Wales NPL this weekend based on the rain forecast?
Well, there are a lot of synthetic pitches in New South Wales, so depending on where the rains fall and where all those games are held, probably you'll get some games. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Now, we've seen so many things happen over the last week. Where do we begin the conversation? You've been a part of the game at the very top end in this country. You were part of Football Federation Australia for quite some time. You know the teams, you know the players, you know the characters involved. Are we slowly making incremental progress, or are we still struggling to understand that governance, good corporate governance, is absolutely key to going to the next level in this country?
Are we treading water?
Yeah, good point. Good one.
Gosh, now no one mentioned that you were going to ask me that question.
I thought from your perspective, I could throw you just about any question, and you've got enough in the tank to come back, and we've got an opportunity to talk about a number of different things. I want to talk about the game, the women's game, and on it goes.
Yeah, I think the short answer to that question are the words that Josh used. We're treading water at the moment. I think that, to suggest there's a lot of positive things about the game, and there's a lot of, as we always talk about, there's a lot of potential for the game. But to be frank, we've been having these conversations for a couple of decades, not just a couple of years, but a couple of decades. Talking about the potential, talking about the participation, talking about the fact that we need to get the costs of the game lowered, talking about the professionalism of the major domestic competition, the A-League, talking about what we do around a national second tier, talking about how to get the women's game and more women involved at a higher level.
More women's games too.
Exactly. And all of these issues have been around for so long. And, you do get to the point where you think it's. You almost do get to the point where you think it's not really going to change that much, and what will it take for it to change?
Well, we've had Russia, step in and do something that very few people saw coming, and that is they made sure that when they went into Ukraine, they went with force, and it's shaken the world. It's certainly shaken Europe, and noticed that one of the most amazingly compliant organisations in the world, I'm talking FIFA, has seen the error of its ways in the past, and they've decided to take a stand, and they've told all the Russian entities and others that you're not welcome in this game. What have you made of that decision?
Look, I think they took a bit long to get to that decision.
Yeah, you will.
But the fact
I did say FIFA is a very compliant organisation. They've taken a long time to get there, but they've done it.
Yeah, but the fact that they have got to it is something to be welcomed.
Yeah.
That was the only course of action that they could take. Having said that, what happened as soon as they took that decision, and UEFA also took the same decision because they had to, because Russia's part of UEFA.
Yep.
That immediate, when you've got an organisation which has 211 member nations, the immediate question asked of some other nations is, well, are we going to do this every time? And of course, not everybody, but a lot of countries have had what they would see as being similar circumstances to what Russia's done is doing in Ukraine.
Sure. The Western world went into Iraq at a time when there were a lot of questions that still needed to be answered, and we didn't see the sort of penalties meted out by FIFA and others. So you're right. There is enormous inconsistency, but we've seen Roman Abramovich, who I suppose started the Abramovich, or the Roman Revolution, they say at Chelsea, come out the other day and say he was going to hand the stewardship of his club to a group of charity organisations that he has great faith in. And I thought to myself, first time I've heard the word stewardship used quite like that. Were you amazed by that decision from Abramovich, or was it just smart optics?
Well, there's two aspects to that. First of all, it was smart. Well, I don't even think it was smart optics. It was just some window dressing to begin with.
Yep.
But he's since changed that decision and said that he's going to sell the club and he's going to donate the proceeds of that to those who are fighting in Ukraine. Now, they're also very interesting words because at first glance you think, oh, he's doing something good. He's going to help the people of Ukraine. But it's, in fact, the words where he's helping the people fighting in Ukraine, he doesn't actually say who he's going to help. It could be the Russian side, it could be the Belarusians, or it could be the Ukrainians. And the other thing is, he's a man who's worth about 14 billion pounds, I think it's pounds.
It is pound or euro.
He's selling the club for about 1.5. So it's a relatively... It sounds like an enormous amount of an unimaginable amount of money to most of us, but it's not huge on the scale that he's operating in. And a lot of people like Roman Abramovich and other oligarchs in Russia have been getting richer and richer, while a lot of the rest of the world has struggled, especially over the past 2 years.
Correct.
Bonita, I also found the vagaries in the statement. Net proceeds as well was the phrase used, not proceeds. So this it's only going to be the profit he makes over what he spent in the club in the first place, and I don't know whether that's also subtracting all the money that he's loaned Chelsea recently or all the money that he's pumped into the club, because I don't think $1.5 billion is barely going to cover it if that's the case.
Correct.
I think that's right. And the other aspect of all of this with people like Abramovich and other oligarchs is most of them have a number of different citizenships. So, for example, while he's Russian, he also has Israeli citizenship and Portuguese citizenship. So I don't think anyone's really asked the question about what Israel and Portugal doing about that, for example. Because, we're getting into non-football things here, but if you're going to really put pressure on the oligarchs in the hope of getting to Putin, that would be another logical thing to look at.
Bonita, I also want to go back to the FIFA thing and talk about, I guess, the way that Russia actually used FIFA and has already almost extracted what they need from FIFA in terms of prestige and sports washing during the World Cup. I mean, it puts Infantino in a very compromised position now because there are just so many photos of him with Putin. They've spent so much time together.
More than photos, it's video.
And I think back to the opening game of the 2018 World Cup where it's Infantino sat between the two leaders of the two countries playing against each other, which was Putin on one side and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia on the other. And, you know, trying to placate both of them as a Russian goal went in after Russian goal. I mean, FIFA's got a history of cozying up to these types of dictators and Infantino chief amongst those who've been guilty of it.
Oh, look, it started way before Infantino. It started with the fact of the bidding process for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups. And let's not forget that Australia's not exactly blameless in that. We tried very, very hard to do a deal with Russia. And in fact, they just diddled us in the end. But we tried hard and we knew what they were like. So those who made the decision to award the 2018 World Cup in the first place to Russia are amongst those who must first have blame shot at them. Unfortunately, one of the downsides of having an international organisation like FIFA, and this is part of the criticism that I have been making for years, is that no attempt has ever been made to bring other nations up to the highest possible standard. It's been about playing at the lowest possible standard. And there is no doubt, in my opinion, that the Russian bid, which won that contest in one vote amongst four different bidders, did so in a corrupt manner. There, in some ways, the spotlight's never really been on them because Qatar won also, and everybody thought that was so shocking. And sure, we know there are issues around that as well, but Russia engaged in the same sort of behaviour, in the same sort of activity as most of the bidders in that contest. And that's where it started. Infantino came in as president in 2016. He was faced with having a World Cup in Russia. And yes, you're right. He did what all FIFA presidents have done since Havelange, and there's only been the three of them. And they've cozied up to dictators. There's a history of it. FIFA has a history of it.
And we've got the Qatar World Cup only months away now.
Yes, November it starts.
So you can imagine we've got that, and then the next World Cup is the tripartite agreement between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So it's getting interesting.
Well, no, George, the next World Cup after the 2022 one is in Australia and New Zealand, isn't it?
Very good.
Sorry, very good pickup. Wow, that was nifty, Bonita. Very good. Bonita, got me right where it does. Right between the eyes. You got me.
Bonita, I want to ask you your opinion, and I don't know if there is a right answer to this about banning Russia from participation in FIFA. I think it's been pretty unanimous approval of that decision amongst at least the Western world. And you can understand the logic of it. The Russian anthem playing, the Russian flag flying it's
propaganda.
Yeah, exactly. But now UEFA have banned Russian clubs from participating in European competitions. And, one could argue that Spartak Moscow, for example, aren't representing Russia. They're representing Spartak.
Yep.
And then there's the case of individual Russian athletes, not only in football but in sport worldwide. We've got a Australian Open champion, Medvedev, who's now having his participation questioned. I do wonder where we draw the line at targeting teams and targeting individuals.
I think anybody who suggests that sport and politics don't mix is living in
La La
fancy land.
Yeah,
they absolutely do mix. And let's be clear, under the direction of Vladimir Putin, they have invaded a country for no reason other than the fact that he is trying to recreate the old Soviet Union and he wants that land. From a world perspective, sport has its part to play in putting as maximum pressure on having that decision reversed. Otherwise, the consequences are catastrophic, not just for Europe, but also for the world, because it will go around the rest of the world as well. So I think anything that puts pressure back on ordinary Russians and Russia and allows ordinary Russians to get the decision through to them, or get the news through to them that what is actually happening, I think helps. And the athletes who are Russians and the Russian teams, they have a role and responsibility in all of this as well, in making sure that, or in helping to explain to their people what exactly is happening.
Look, it's been an absolutely whirlwind last couple of weeks, and there are so many things that we've had to address. And we've seen, as you touched, we saw UEFA, we saw FIFA come out and make some interesting comments early on. And everyone kept saying, there's not enough pressure, you've got to do more, And sure enough, it's now been the case where we've seen Russia virtually told, you're not going to the World Cup. Yeah, and that was something I didn't imagine I would hear 2 weeks ago. So that now we know that unless something quite dramatic happens, I put it to you that we will not see, come November, Russia, whether it qualifies or not, in Qatar. And we may also, if things get worse, I dare say we'll make sure that there won't be a Russian team at the Women's World Cup next year.
Yeah, and if things get worse, that's correct. Which is, let's hope it doesn't actually get to the point where that decision has to be made. But at the moment, Russia in the women's competition, they're sitting second in their group, I think. And that puts them in a qualifying position because the way it works from UEFA is the top teams automatically qualify, and then there's a playoff for the next lot amongst the second teams. But, of course, they won't be I presume they won't be playing now if UEFA's banned them and if FIFA's banned them, but they won't be playing in the qualifying phase.
Let's see.
Bonita, last one from me, and this is just me reflecting, I guess, on how we came to this decision. That was through the boycotts of Poland and Sweden and the Czech Republic, who said they wouldn't play their qualifying playoff matches if they have to face Russia. Poland first and foremost, because they were drawn against them in that sort of semi-final. But it sort of makes you realise the power of boycotts when it comes to this type of thing. Has world football missed the boat on boycotting Qatar? Because it could have really changed the trajectory of what's happened there if a decade ago countries had stepped up to the plate.
I think the issues around Qatar are quite complex, and it's not as easy to answer and in just sort of a very quick response. Basically, when push comes to shove, despite all of the inquiries to date, there hasn't been any proof of anything untoward in relation to the Qatar World Cup. And the pressure that was put on around human rights and workers' rights and all of that started in 2010, 2011, basically when there wasn't the change in relation to that decision by, say, 2016, it was always going to be the case that the Qatar World Cup would proceed because of the obligations and the legal commitments that were wrapped up in all of that and in terms of the timing. I think one of the good things that FIFA has done in recent years is they've introduced a human rights policy. You talk to experts around that and they'll say, well, but they're not actually doing anything much about their human rights policy, but at least they have one. Beforehand, they didn't even have one. But I do think that there's a lot of people in football and around sport who could have helped put pressure on FIFA and other decision makers before the decision was made.
The only time I've ever seen protests of this calibre actually work were the anti-apartheid demonstrations and the protests when South Africa was right in the middle of its, I suppose, golden time when it really was a very tough country. It had very clear laws. It was definitely black and white, and if you didn't fit in either, there was a real complication. And we saw those massive protests eventually bear fruit, because we did see the arrival of Mandela. We saw the arrival of the then reigning government saying, our time has come and we're going to step down. that was almost unbelievable when it happened. So again, here we are. Things can happen, but there's got to be a will, hasn't there? Always a will.
Yeah, there always has to be a will, and there has to be, you hear criticism, for example, of people such as Craig Foster because he is out and about advocating on human rights issues. But frankly, someone has to do that.
Correct.
It's like, 10 years ago, I was advocating almost alone in the world, and particularly alone in Australia, about the need for governance change at FIFA. I was the first one who actually put those words together around the world. And but someone has to do it. Do you make enemies at that time? Yes, you do. Yeah. But is it worthwhile when change happens? Yes, it is. And so, those who sit back on their sofas and criticise people who dare to raise questions or raise an issue or advocate for something better or advocate for change, they're not even worth listening to, frankly. And I'd give me a million Craig Fosters anytime.
You've actually got Craig at a Fair Play Publishing weekend, haven't you? It's a big event coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's broader than Fair Play Publishing. It's the Football Writers Festival. It's an opportunity for writers, authors, readers, thinkers, dreamers to get together. And the way Writers Festivals works are, we gather around books and things that have been written and talk about some of the big and small issues in the sport. So it's a great program, and Craig is one of the speakers.
Chew the fat, talking about the game that we love. When is it on?
It's March the 25th to the 27th at Jamboree. That Jamboree is the spiritual home of Johnny Warren. There's a Johnny Warren football museum. It's a room full of Johnny Warren memorabilia, and we've got some greats of the game coming along, as well as people such as, Craig's also a great of the game, isn't he? But yes. We've got people such as Cozzy and Gary Cole. Yeah. We've got Professor John Maynard, who's written several books, including about football, and he's currently writing another one. We've got Dr. Hunter Fujak, who wrote a terrific book on Code Wars.
Yeah.
So there's a whole range of issues being discussed, and a great program ahead.
I was just going to say, Gary Cole, for me, is a remarkable story. He's someone who came into this country as a young man. His father and the whole family came from one end of the world to the other, and he's grown. He brought his game, he matured his game, and he kept in the game, coached, and of course then reinvented himself as an administrator and as someone who dearly, dearly loves the game. And we're now seeing him helping the coaches go to the next level. So it's going to be interesting to get down there. 25th to the 27th of March at Jamboree.
That's correct. And can I just add one point to that, George? And that is, I think the more former players, they're very similar to Gary in that a lot of them want to be involved in helping others. And, one other person that I should have mentioned who will be there and who's written probably one of the best sporting autobiographies I've ever read, and that's Andy Bernal with Riding Shotgun. And Andy desperately wants to help people in the game and desperately wants to help people in Canberra, for example, which is his hometown. And I think, people like that who have so much experience, both on the field and off the field, and have so much to offer, we should be taking advantage of all of them.
Touche. Andrew Bernal's story alone. We've had him on air, and look, it's hard to believe some of the stories. They're so magnificent, so colourful, and what a time! Yep. What a time to be where he was with the people and the opportunities that came his way. Great book. Well done.
And there's going to be some great stories coming out of that. Bonita, thank you so much for joining us and talking about some of the big issues in world football. And we look forward to the Football Writers Festival.
That's a pleasure. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, George.
No worries at all. Bonita Mersiades joining us on State of Our Football Nation. Jason Pine, Tony Tannous and Bonita Mersiades. a busy program. Thanks very much for joining us.
Busy indeed, George. If you missed any of that, you can catch up on the podcast platforms. But we've got a live broadcast coming up this weekend.
Tell me about it.
So Fitzroy City have got us to come down and do their FFA Cup match, or Australia Cup.
I was just going to say, when do we actually move it on to Australia Cup? It's now official, isn't it?
It's official, Australia Cup, even if some of the websites need changing still, I notice. But I'm very much looking forward to calling that one alongside Damir Kulash at Kevin Bartlett Reserve on Saturday. It's a 5 p.m. kickoff, and the women are playing straight afterwards in the Nike FC Cup as well. Looking forward to that.
Have you got enough time this weekend? You've got a huge affair coming up at Lakeside tomorrow night. It's almost yesteryear being given this huge recast at Lakeside. It's South Melbourne, the home side, up against the Melbourne Knights. Oh, man, it is Back to the Future, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. I think this is a special year for this game, particularly just with the National Second Division on the horizon. Those clubs have both recruited really well. Melbourne Knights had a bit of a reality brick to the face last Friday against Avondale, where they lost 3-0, even if they had a man advantage for about an hour. So I'm sure there will be big changes to their selection coming into this one, whereas South Melbourne have started the season perfectly, 2 wins from 2, and they've knocked off 2 good sides in Heidelberg and Bentley.
Just before I leave you, can you very quickly, from what you've seen already, the top 3 who are likely to finish at the very top end of the competition? Let's see how good a judge you are, and we'll pull this up at the end of the year.
I think Avondale will be up there again.
Still
so good. They had 5 players out and they still beat the Knights 3-0. So it just shows the depth and quality of their team.
So Avondale?
I think Green Gully look good. I'm not sure if they'll be top 3, but I really like the look of their recruitment this season. They've signed Noel Bernarda, who's starred for Dandy Thunder and Hume City and had trials at various A-League clubs, the Argentinian. He looks great, and they've brought a couple of A-League or ex-A-League prospects in Josh Hope, who's returning to football, which is great to see, and Gianluca Iannucci, who was at City and then Victory. They look terrific. I don't know if they'll be top 3 good, but they're up there. And
so Avondale, Green Gully, and
I actually think South Melbourne look pretty good.
Ooh.
You know, they're still playing a few too many long balls to Harrison Sawyer, who's their towering target man.
Well, if you've got a towering target man, what do you think you're going to do?
Well, I think that the temptation is too strong to lump it to Harry Sawyer's head.
I hear.
This season they've got more attacking players around him, so that when he wins a flick on or a knockdown, it actually falls to somebody. So it's a sound enough strategy, but I think they need to add another couple of strings to their bow, just in terms of the variety of that, because if Sawyer gets injured, suddenly the whole game plan falls apart if that's what you're relying on. But at the moment, it's working.
You just make a phone call. Josh Kennedy out of retirement.
Well, he's working for Football Victoria now, so he's down the road.
Well, I was going to say, I'll hold you to that. We'll see how it goes. Josh Parish joining us as he does each and every Thursday on State of Our Football Nation here on FNR. You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.